So I think by far the most complicated feeling thing that a beginning painter can try and do is a portrait. And I think the most common thing I hear about trying to do a portrait is not necessarily about how to make it look like somebody, but how to accomplish a realistic skin tone. There's lots of ways to do that, but the simplest and by far I think the most useful way to do it for me is to simply combine your three primaries using additions of white as needed. And you'll see what I mean as we kind of go through this. But so I'm going to take some blue over here, over there. Probably going to make way too much. It's going to happen. And then I'm going to take some red. And then I'm going to take some yellow. Let's see. My yellow got a little bit dried up, but that's okay. This palette's been sitting around for a couple days. So then I'm going to mix these together, okay? So what you're going to start to see happening is you're going to get like this warm, muddy brown, right? And people don't like it when it looks like a warm, muddy brown, right? But when you take it out of that context that, oh, it's a yucky color, you start to see that it can be adjusted in lots of ways by either adding more of one color or another of your primaries or adding white to tint it up a shade or two. So this, I don't know if you can see it, this is what I would call a pretty dark skin tone. So this would be like maybe Latino, African American, maybe something like that, okay? So that to me is a great starting point if you start at your darker range of ethnicities, right? So say that's kind of your base color there. And then you add white to one side. And you get this, I added too much white, of course, but that's okay. We have plenty of color here to mess with. So then you get this light brown. But once you add white, you start to get this distinctly unrealistic look to your skin tones. It looks it looks lifeless and weird. So it looks more of a beigey color, which I mean isn't too far, I guess, from a skin tone, but it doesn't have a lot of life to it. It doesn't look like. So I'm going to add a little bit more red, just going back to one of my primaries, and that pinks it up a little bit. So then you have, I don't know, like a kind of like a more realistic, maybe Caucasian tone now at least, getting there. And if you wanted to red it up more, somebody who has a lot of sun showing on their face, like they've been in the sun a lot, you could just add more red as you go. And then if that starts to look too pinky for you, you can go over and take a little bit more of your ultramarine blue. And that's going to start bringing it down again, cooling it off, right? And then, if you wanted to make more maybe of an Asian-esque tone, you could come over here with some yellow. Gotta be careful with yellow; you can end up with a with a very unlikable skin tone if you add too much yellow. But you almost always need some degree of yellow, and that adds a yellow tinge tone to your skin tone. So now, if you can see it. If you just look at what I've created here, you can probably get most skin tones just from combining this and then adding more red if you need to, adding more ultramarine blue, cad yellow, and then you can also use a little bit of magenta if you wanted to create something even more interesting, like a more of a shade, right? So if we went over here, that brings down the yellow in your skin tone because purple is the opposite of yellow, right? So it dulls it down, it calms it down, right? So then you get something like that. And then adding white in various degrees to any combination like this is going to give you highlights. You can add more blue to give you for those darker areas on the face. And so yeah, that's my idea about skin tone. I think it's really easy to do. I think anybody can learn how to do this. It's just, I think anything involving painting a human being, replicating your own sense of self, I think is what intimidates people the most subconsciously. When they say, I can't make skin tone, I think when I think of that, I think more that they're just a little intimidated by the whole idea of painting a human being rather than painting the actual, like replicating a skin tone. So anyway, that's the spit on skin tone.